And welcome back to the Crash the Pond podcast. 2 weeks in a row. The sabbatical is long gone now, but we're still in off-season mode. For those of you watching, you know immediately what I'm referring to. But for those listening, one Jake Rudolph showing up to the podcast studio today wearing a cutoff t-shirt.
It's not really a cutoff because
Is it just a tank top?
It almost looks more like a cutoff than a tank top, but it was purchased like this. There was no cuts made.
You woke up like this?
I did wake up like this. Yeah. Justin Johnstone saying the shirt is not cut deep enough. We have to start here at a very modest level to start the off season.
Yeah, you don't want to show too much skin right away.
And then just casually and slowly more and more cutoffs.
You want to tease that.
And then we button up to some Hawaiian shirts when the season starts again.
Yeah, we'll go more buttoned up, more formal as the draft approaches, you know, because that's showtime.
Yeah.
But today we don't really have any Ducks news to talk about. No one got fired, no one got hired, no one got traded. So not really anything there unless I'm missing something.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing that's really been happening that's Ducks related is the World Championships, but because of NHL Network and that whole fun, dumb thing, I have not been able to watch really any of it. So I don't really have any insights on how the tournament's been going for the different Ducks people or any Ducks players or anything like that. I know Zegras is playing.
The only news is that the Ducks signed Rodwin Dioniccio to his 3-year entry-level deal, which weirdly has sparked some conversation, which is interesting to me.
Well, it's just because he had signed a 3-year deal with a Swiss team, and there were a lot of people that were like, oh no, this meant that he wasn't going to play for the Ducks ever because his rights would go up. There's a transfer agreement between the two. Just because he signed for the Swiss team didn't necessarily mean that he wouldn't sign his ELC. This felt like it was always going to be the case. So the way it's going to work is my opinion is he's probably going to go over there. He wouldn't have signed that deal if it wasn't likely that he would go over to the Swiss League next season, play there for a season, and then probably reevaluate it after that.
Yeah, so that contract includes a European assignment clause. Okay. And I'd be lying if I said that I knew exactly what that meant, but I'm assuming that probably clears the path between getting him over there and not affecting his actual contract status with the Ducks.
Yeah, and it's not abnormal either. I mean, you saw it with even conversations around Leo Carlsson last year. It was, where is he going to end up? If he doesn't make the Ducks, are they going to send him back to Sweden? Guys going back to Europe and playing in Europe is not abnormal. I think just what makes the Dioniccio part of it a little bit different is the fact that he was playing junior hockey in North America and now is about to go back to Europe.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think that the European assignment clause just allows them to send him to Europe. And Isaac Lundestrom had that on his first contract with the Ducks as well. So some precedent there, but don't really have a whole lot to say. Didn't really watch any of Dioniccio this season beyond what he did at the rookie tournament and training camp. But he's a guy who has some potential, some offensive upside. He had 73 points this year in 60 games in the OHL, so that's exciting. But until we really see him with the Ducks, maybe we'll catch some Swiss games next year. I don't have a whole lot to add on that front. And people are going to ask, and they have asked, so I'll just get that out of the way about Trevor Zegras' performance at the World Junior Championship. Or sorry, not the World Junior, the World Championship. And you already alluded to it, but we can't watch the games. We don't have NHL Network, and I'm not gonna pay for a trial of Fubo or something just to be able to watch Trevor Zegras apparently not playing a whole lot. So sorry, folks, don't have a whole lot to add there. Yeah. But I think the thing that is relevant for the Ducks, and there's a lot of draft talk right now. This is draft season. We're really getting into that mode of figuring out these players. But a rumor that not a rumor, but a discussion. A discussion that I'm going to say that I started.
Okay.
I'm taking the credit.
I really do feel like it generally started around Ducks fandom because of you mentioning on the show. And then after that, I feel like, well, it's a mix. It's you mentioning it, and then anytime we got a question about RFAs, you or me would just bring his name up.
So I don't want to take credit for it, but you gave me the credit, so I'm rolling with it, that Martin Necas, Carolina Hurricanes, we just saw them get bounced by the New York Rangers. Shockingly, I did not think that they would lose. I was very confident that they would get past the Rangers. They didn't. And ever since that they lost, Martin Necas, his name has swirled in trade rumors. And it's actually hilarious, like the nature of the rumors. I didn't quite understand it until I looked into it earlier today. But apparently his dad gave an interview saying that his son doesn't want to play for the Carolina Hurricanes anymore. And then Peter Mrazek, who's like his best friend who used to play for the Hurricanes, also gave an interview at the World Championship that that the Hurricanes are basically misusing Martin Necas on their team and that he would probably thrive somewhere else. And just a whole lot of smoke, a whole lot of people speaking for him. We don't actually know Martin Necas' stance on all of this, but those are some pretty pretty incendiary comments from people close to him.
And then in addition to that, you had Elliot Friedman kind of when he did the autopsy of the Carolina Hurricanes, made it kind of sound like signing him wasn't necessarily a priority for the Hurricanes. And likely he was going to be out for that team, that they viewed other guys that needed new contracts as being more of a priority than him. And he didn't necessarily see a long-term fit there.
Yeah. And so it just feels like there's a lot of smoke around this, and it's coming from all different angles. People that are literally insiders that know him personally, and then Elliot Friedman probably gathering information on the side there. And the Hurricanes have a lot of decisions to make this offseason. I do think that their cap situation is sort of constrained. So we're back. We're back to the Necas conversation. Didn't think that we'd be back here. I thought that Martin Necas is a great player, and you would think that the Hurricanes would want to factor him in to their long-term plans, but it just sounds like from both sides that there isn't necessarily a great fit between the way that the Hurricanes want to play, which is this kind of, smash mouth. We need to come up with a better term for that style, because I don't necessarily know what smash mouth means, and it sounds painful, but this physical dump and chase.
Does it make you an all-star?
Going for rebounds, all of that, versus Martin Necas, who's kind of an east-west skilled shooter, playmaker. And actually, that's something that Peter Mrazek said, is that he's going to thrive more out here in international hockey, bigger ice, than he is the way that they're using him over there in Carolina. So first things first, before we get into contracts and trades and all of that, the basic question that we need to ask and that we need to answer is Martin Necas good? Is he any good? Is the juice worth the squeeze here?
Yes. And I think he is very good. I think he's someone where you look at his numbers defensively. I think there is room for growth there, but offensively, he brings a level of talent, a level of skill that this team can quite frankly need or use. And Pat Verbeek has said that
kind of need it.
Yeah.
You could say need to.
Yeah. You look at this team and you look at last season. We talked about it a bunch that they made massive improvements defensively, and Salem has now jumped on my lap. They made massive improvements defensively. They went from being the worst team in the analytics era to being, depending on where you look, around average, which is a massive stride when you look at it that way. But their offensive creation, offensive chance generation, everything along those lines was about the same between last season and the season before that. And so there needs to be something that happens with this team with their ability to generate chances for. I think adding a guy like Martin Necas, who has shown the ability to drive offense towards the other team's net and does it in a system also, mind you, that is one that Greg Cronin wants to kind of implement a bit. And maybe that is a negative if he wants out of a system like that in Carolina. Maybe that's a check on the negative side of it. But that is a player that the Ducks could desperately need to help drive offense for them. And so, and then on top of that, you add in the fact that he is only 25 years old right now.
Yeah.
And so he is going to really age with this team. And while, yes, it's going to cost a pretty penny to sign him to a new contract when you make this trade, it's one that as the cap is rising, it's going to look better and better as time goes on. And he's going to age with this team and eventually be the veteran on this team. He's the guy that will have the playoff experience to help with the new younger guys that don't have that playoff experience yet.
Yeah. And so I think I'm going to co-sign what you said about his game, which is that he's a high level playmaker, shooter, and he's one of their best puck carriers. And actually Corey Schneider had a good thread about this on Twitter. I think it was earlier today that Necas still gets to play his game with the Hurricanes. Like, he carries the puck a lot. He is not a dump and chase guy. They haven't just kind of turned him into this foot soldier. Like, he's still able to do a lot of the things that he wants. And, you know, looking at some of like the track data, it certainly checks out. Like, he's way above average in terms of controlled entries per 60. So he just loves to carry the puck in. And then once he's in the zone, he's really good at setting up his teammates, really good at getting into those dangerous areas, getting scoring chances. The caveat with him, or I should say the drawback with him, at least for this season, we haven't necessarily seen it for his entire career, but it's that the defensive game took a really big step back. And I think that that's kind of troubling when you play for the Hurricanes, who just plainly don't defend a lot. They don't spend a lot of time in their own zone. They, you know, generally get a lot of shots. And so even if you're porous defensively, you may still be able to hide within those numbers because they're going to skew the shot advantage most of the time. So that is a little bit concerning, but the Ducks just need more high-end talent up front. And he's a right shot winger. I think he can play center. At least that's something that they've talked about. But you can see him just kind of integrating seamlessly into what the Ducks already have, because the Ducks already have a bunch of centers. There's no need to add there, but now you can add in a high-end skilled forward to that mix, and all of a sudden the Ducks' top six just looks a lot more formidable.
Yeah.
So the question becomes, and you already brought it up, the contract. So looking, I'll just spew out the numbers. But
yeah, I was about to say it, but go for it.
Oh, okay. Well, why don't you go for it?
So basically, this is, and keep in mind, this was Evolving Hockey's contract projection. This is based on last summer. So this does not account for anything with this prior season, which could actually bring down the value. But they had him projected an 8-year term at $8.79 million if he was a restricted free agent last summer. And so his production did take a dip this past season. So that could maybe bring it down a little bit here and there. But also the cap is rising to kind of force it the other way. So if I were to make a bet, I would say he would probably be north of $8 million on any of his next contract, and it's going to take term, whether it's 7 or 8 years, to get it done.
Yeah, it feels like, I mean, he's younger than Terry. He turned 25 this January, so he's a young 25. Like, he's not about to turn 26, and so if you're the Ducks, like, basically, if you're going to go and try to get him, you're not doing it to get him on a shorter deal. You're doing it so that you can lock him up as a long-term piece. And so I guess just for you, point blank, like, is that a contract that you'd be willing to pay? Let's say they did get up to that 8-year term.
Yes. And I think the reason some people may balk at it when you say that, but the cap is rising. It's going to be going up to what, 87.5 next season?
Yeah.
It's going to be going up to 87.5 next season. It's just going to keep rising after that. And I think what we've seen with the teams of late that have been competitive, specifically the one that comes to mind is Vegas. You go out and sign the guys if you can make the deal happen. You sign them to extensions. And then if you end up being in cap trouble, you can find ways to clean that up come summertime. You can find ways to make it work. And so while, yes, signing Marty Necas to this deal could make it hard to sign all of your young players once the time comes, well, that's the price you pay to be good.
You have to spend money at some point.
You have to spend money, and sure, it's going to make you close to the cap, but that's how every team that is good ends up being. And you can find teams that will take, when you are competitive, there are going to be teams that are going to be near the cap floor. That is just how the system always ends up working. When a team is bad, they're not going to be spending money. You can pay a team a second-round pick to take a bad contract from you. Just pay a first-round pick. When you're competitive and you are contending for a Stanley Cup, those first-round picks do not matter as much as keeping your best players on your team. And so at this point in time with this Ducks team, the priority is not about saving your cap space. It is about improving your team in a way that helps you be competitive and hit your contending window at your maximum amount. And Marty Necas is that. He aligns with this Ducks contending window. He is a right-hand shot forward, which is exactly what Pat Verbeek is looking for, right? And fits exactly the billing of everything he wants to kind of add to this team in terms of another top 6 right-hand shot winger. And you work around that. You don't sign a Frank Vetrano as a result of that. You have to walk away from him. Eventually, Cam Fowler's contract is going to come off the books. Or if you get into cap trouble, You can always buy out something like that. John Gibson, eventually that contract's going to come off the books. Ryan's like, there are contracts that come off the books, and eventually this 8.7, which might seem large right now, that's the going rate for what, a second line winger?
Yeah, like an elite, or not even elite, honestly. Like, yeah, like a true second line, fringe first line player, I would say.
Like
eight is pretty much the number you have to hit for these types of players.
Like, I think we're just kind of still stuck because I think the Ducks have been where they've been at for a while.
When's the last time the Ducks handed out a contract like this? Like, it just hasn't happened.
Well, Terry's close. Terry's close at 7x7. But where I was going to go with this was that the last time the Ducks were competitive and tight to the cap, their highest paid player was in the eights. And so I think that it's hard to necessarily adjust that because as a Ducks fan, you haven't necessarily cared about the cap, cared about any of this type of stuff for a bit. And 8 now is what you pay for second liners. That's just with where the salary cap is, that's what you pay. And so it's adjusting your mindset on that front.
Man, hearing you say that kind of hurts me a little bit just because that's what Nick Suzuki's making. And I don't consider him a second liner. Well, I'll just have you know. But yeah, you're right that the number for, I think, people's expectation of what $8 million gets you should change. It's no longer $8 million gets you like a superstar player. It gets you a very good top 6 player, fringe first line. But to get elite first line, you got to get to like 10. That's just the way that it goes these days. So I think I would do it. I think that if you look at the kind of trajectory of every dynasty team, there's always, not always, but there's quite often a big swing. For me with the Blackhawks, for example, it was Marian Hossa. It was, let's bring in this kind of outside piece while we have the cap space, while some of our younger guys aren't making their big deals. And all of a sudden that elevates the floor and the ceiling of our team. And I think Martin Necas could be that for the Ducks. And if it's not going to be him, it's got to be someone. At some point, you have to bring in a big piece.
And, I mean, for people that might say, well, would Varik do this? I mean, rumors were he was in on Alex DeBrincat last summer, right?
Yeah. That was widely discussed.
Like, this is not an abnormal thing of him kind of going for these home run types of swings. So the question just ends up being, does he view Marty Necas as that type of player that's worth this amount? And that is a
there
tougher
may be concerns
question.
there. There may be concerns there because especially with the defensive game, he may look at that as a lack of compete. But I think that if you watch Necas in the playoffs, like he is just so electrifying when he's on the ice. Like he's just so good at getting the puck up ice. He's good. I mean, I think he's good along the walls. He adds something that the Ducks really need on the wings. Like outside of Troy Terry right now, the wing, it's not necessarily this great spot. You've got, Frank Vetrano, who's more like a third liner, who should be a third liner. Trevor Zegras isn't really a natural wing. So bring in a guy who can really do that. That's going to elevate your team. And it also just takes pressure off the other guys. Like, I think it's going to be very difficult for the Ducks to get over the hump purely with kind of internal growth. It's just a very hard thing to do.
And also,
not saying they can't do it though.
So Pokemon Shrouded brought this up. Oh, this is playoffs. Sorry, I need to adjust this for regular season. But he's saying, if I remember correctly, his line mates were different this season as compared to the season before. He played a lot less with Stahl and Aho as a center, instead was with Drury a lot. And so I'm looking at it right now. Yeah, Jack Drury was his main center with Michael Bunting on the wing with him, or Kotkaniemi. Okay. So it's not as if he was necessarily used with top 6 forwards.
Yeah, Kotkaniemi is a fourth liner at this point. So
he didn't play a bunch with Sebastian Aho, and I'm curious where he was at in the season prior, who was his most played center with. But I think if you bring him in the Duck system, he's going to be an instant top 6 player, going to be playing with better players.
He's going to have a great line mate immediately. And the awesome thing, too, is that you can really take your pick. Because if you think that maybe a Leo Carlson type is the best fit, you can go with him. If that doesn't work, you've got Mason McTavish. If that doesn't work, you can go back to Zegras at center. Like, you have so many options.
So it looks like the season prior, his most played with forward was Andrei Svechnikov.
Okay. So big.
And Kotkaniemi at center. So there's that, but he's still playing with Svechnikov, which makes a big difference.
KHL. The K in KK stands for KHL.
Wow.
Hey, I have to dunk on them after all that happened.
But still, so the quality of center and winger that he will be playing with would likely be upgraded going from playing on the third line in Carolina.
More skill.
Yes. Playing with Jack Drury and Michael Bunting or Kotkaniemi to them playing with whether it's a Leo Carlson, whether it's a Trevor Zegras, whether there's just more skill that he would be playing with in those situations. He'd be put in a better spot to thrive.
So the next question is, you got to give to get.
Yep.
What are you giving?
I think the Oilers' first round pick is a must.
I mean, that's just like price of admission.
That
you can't get through the door with it. You can't open the door without that.
I think that the Carolina Hurricanes are going to want a roster. Like, you have to think about it like this when you can't just like propose a trade of all futures to the Hurricanes. Like, I think Ducks fans would like to think, okay, we'll trade a first round pick. We'll trade
Noah
Warren and Sasha Pastujov,
Nikita Nestorenko,
and just trade these types of guys. I think more realistically, even if you hit the right value target, right, with all prospects and picks, the Hurricanes aren't going to want that. They are going to want some sort of roster player back. And so that's why I think a first round pick, I think Frank Vetrano would be a very tempting piece in this deal because of his cap hit for them. And it adds a player that it more so probably fits the Carolina Hurricanes mold than a Marty Necas. And they get him for this upcoming year. And then you throw in a prospect along with that, or a young player along with that looks like they could be NHL ready.
Would you compare this deal to like a Tkachuk, Eichel, Meyer deal?
Tkachuk, no, because Tkachuk was too older player. Like, the Ducks don't have anyone in the Jonathan Huberdeau mold.
No, I'm saying just in like terms of the value that.
Oh, got it.
Yeah. Because I feel like Tkachuk was younger.
Tkachuk was younger. He was also coming off a 100+ point season.
Yeah, I think Tkachuk had more value. Jack Eichel maybe is a better comp.
No, Tkachuk wasn't younger. Tkachuk was right around the same age.
Okay.
I'll double check that, but I'm pretty positive he was right around that same age because
July of 22.
Yeah,
because he got Huberdeau, Weegar, Cole Schwint, and a conditional first. So 2 big roster players.
So Matthew Tkachuk was 1 year younger. He was 24 years old when that deal was made.
So a little younger.
But
also,
he was coming off a 104 point season.
Yeah, I think that's probably like the high end of what Necas could get.
Necas, I don't think Necas has broken a point per game.
What about like a DeBrincat trade? Is that comparable?
The
Ottawa to Chicago, or sorry, Chicago to Ottawa.
Chicago to Ottawa, no, because there was way more RFA term on it, I believe.
Okay. Because that was just 3 picks. That was a first, a second, and a third.
I think it's probably more like what Detroit gave up traded to Ottawa for him.
So no thought to the Eichel trade? Because the Eichel trade kind of looks like what I would somewhat expect. Like,
the tough part with the Eichel trade is just the circumstances around.
But to me, that would bring it closer to Necas, because if you just factor like, okay, uncertainty brought Eichel down to like more of like a player like Necas probably than what Jack Eichel is at this point. Like, I think that lowered his value, but that probably brings it closer to what Necas is.
Fair.
And I mean, you look at it: roster player Alex Tuck, prospect Peyton Krebs, first round pick, and a second round pick.
Also, just a different situation with a contract being completed. So contract wise, different. So looks like I'm just trying to circle the wagon here on this, but Marty Necas UFA would be 2026. So he has one more summer of RFA status before hitting.
So it's like Meyer.
UFA. It's
Meyer
more,
had 1 year.
I think it's like DeBrincat, actually, the one that you first mentioned, going from Chicago to Ottawa.
Look at me, just throwing spaghetti at the wall.
UFA in 2024, he was.
Well, Meyer had a year too, though. Just to.
But with the summer DeBrincat was traded, there were 2, which is what Necas has also.
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
So I think the DeBrincat trade is probably a good one. The DeBrincat from Chicago to Ottawa. But the flip
that feels low though.
The tough part is that that's all futures.
Yeah, so exactly. And Chicago, rebuilding team, that kind of spurred their rebuild, getting a bunch of picks. So I think that I think that honestly the original trade that we kind of proposed way back when.
I mean, so DeBrincat's last season in Chicago, he put up 78 points.
Yeah. which maybe is closer to what Necas did.
Yeah.
I mean, I just don't know if I can really equate it to the Timo Meier trade.
Necas has never broken 78 points, just as a heads up. His highest point total was 22-23 with 71.
Okay, so we agree first round pick. I think that's for sure. That's the common thread in all of this. I think we agree a roster player.
Yep.
Which
likely
is
Frank Vatrano.
And then after that, it's probably a big drop off in like prospect quality.
Yeah, I don't even think it has to be that. I think the deal is largely structured around the first round pick and Vatrano.
It could be like a third. It could be an additional pick.
Like
I think there's going to be three pieces. I think it's three pieces because it's a minimum of three pieces for this trade.
First Vatrano and maybe like a Sasha Pastujov.
Yeah, I mean, I could see them liking Pastujov just because he's a prospect analytics darling, or just another pick. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's going to be something like that. And honestly, if you are the Ducks, you are just laughing to the bank.
Yep.
Doing that because the 20, what is it going to be? 28th at best.
Yeah.
First round pick for the Oilers. Like that's just, I mean, we've seen what kind of player that can get you in the draft, and it's a dart throw. And then Frank Vatrano, he's found money at that point, and then throw in whatever else.
So I want to step in here real quick on this though.
Okay.
So you and I both agree on Frank Vatrano, but that is our opinion.
Okay, well, who's the roster player then?
That's where I was going to go with it, just to start figuring out who do you think the other roster player would be. And I think largely this conversation can be had about a lot of people, a lot of players you would want to trade for.
Maybe they want term. Maybe they want a guy who has a bit more security. Maybe it's Ryan Strome.
I don't know. Maybe you have to retain on Ryan Strome, but yeah, I could see that. But the issue there is that they would have to wait until July 1 to make that trade.
Because we know that they don't. We know that they don't like rentals. We do know that.
So you cannot trade any guy and retain any salary if it's going to include the Oilers first, because the Ducks are using all three retention spots, and those don't open up till July 1st.
Okay. Well, then maybe you have to include a better prospect at that point to make up for that.
I mean, maybe in Isaac Lundestrom, maybe they value the game that he has.
Yeah. Well, you think Lundestrom in a first, or you're saying Lundestrom on top of
Lundestrom instead of Vatrano?
Oh, man, that just feels like such a minimal return.
A first, Lundestrom, and a prospect.
I could see, yeah, I think that would be more in line. Like if Lundestrom is the roster player, then you need to throw in a prospect. That's just what my gut is telling me.
What
I could see the Hurricanes liking Lundestrom though. He kind of fits what they do a little bit.
Yep. Agreed. Let's continue this conversation, but before we get to that, because I got a question actually for you on it. But before we get to that, let's have a quick word from our sponsor. So, warmer, sunnier days are calling. Fuel up for them with Factor's no prep, no mess meals. Meet your wellness goals in time for summer thanks to the menu of chef-crafted meals with options like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are dietitian approved and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. No matter how busy you are, you'll always have time to enjoy nutritious, great tasting meals. Make today the day you kickstart a new healthy routine. What are you waiting for? With 35 different meals and more than 60 add-ons to choose from every week, you'll always have new flavors to explore. You can crush your wellness goals this May with dietitian-approved meals and ingredients that you can trust. Make your day delicious from breakfast to dessert. Stay fueled with easy, nutritious options. Treat yourself to restaurant-quality meals that feature premium ingredients like filet mignon, shrimp, and blackened salmon, and you can keep kitchen time to a minimum. Factor meals are ready within 2 minutes, no shopping, prepping, cooking, or cleaning up. You can enjoy effortless support for your lifestyle, so you can choose from 6 menu preferences to help manage your calories, maximize your protein intake, avoid meat, or simply eat well balanced. And these are really, really helpful. They've been kind enough to send us some of these meals. And as I'm trying to get back on the health train, Felix and I text a bunch about working out. One of the biggest and most important things with working out and getting into shape is eating correctly, eating healthy, managing those calories, hitting your protein intakes, things like that. I'm very meticulous about all of that. And it's very, very nice that Factor gives you all of that in prepackaged, easy to heat up containers that are all very, very tasty. So you can head to factormeals.com CTP50 and use code CTP50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month. That's code CTP50 at factormeals.com/CTP50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next box while your subscription is active.
Okay. So your question.
Here's the question I have for you. There's been a couple people that mentioned it in the chat. I have my opinion on it, but I'm just going to throw it to you. What do you think about Trevor Zegras being included in this trade?
Oh, Zegras. I thought you were going to say Lacombe for some reason.
Lacombe is being thrown out there by a bunch of people. I think he could fit. I think that could work.
I think he makes a lot of sense when you look at Carolina's blue line situation.
Yes, definitely.
Like, they don't have anyone under contract after next season on the blue line.
It gives them a young guy. Makes a ton of sense. Makes a ton of sense from the Duck side of it. All that type of stuff. I don't think there's a lot of a conversation there because you and I are both on the side of, hey, if that's what it needs to get it done, then you go for it. Sucks to lose him, but it is what it is. The Zegras side of it is, I don't know if it's a more interesting conversation because we've had this conversation so many times throughout the season, but it's one that I think we're not going to be able to escape with any of these trade rumors. So I think it's important to at least address it.
Yeah, I think that's a great thing to bring up because maybe at some point we'll also talk about the Nikolaj Ehlers situation, but it's kind of the same conversation, which is that one team is giving up an established top six. Well, maybe some people say that Necas is not established, but I would say by now he's a known quantity, giving him up. And in return, maybe the other team will want just a younger version of that in Trevor Zegras. Would I do that? Oh man, you're putting me on the spot. I think, what else am I including? If it's Zegras, am I including
Let's just say 1 for 1?
1 for 1? I think I do it. I wouldn't do it.
Here's the issue with that.
I think I would do it.
Here's my issue.
But I'm not sure. I'm going to double back just a bit.
Here's my issue. It's what we've brought up, right? With all of these Trevor Zegras type trades. Mm-hmm. What are you going to do that makes sense for this Ducks team? How do I phrase this better? In a Trevor Zegras trade, how do you make a trade that makes moving him make sense? Because this isn't a situation where you have other players like Zegras in the system. You have other players, like you have a bevy of that type of talent. And while I think that bringing in Necas is fantastic for this team and would help them out significantly, I don't think doing a somewhat lateral move helps you long-term by making that type of trade. I don't think Necas, while I like him a lot, is that big of an upgrade on Trevor Zegras where it makes sense. The only time it would have made sense to me is if it was like an Elias Pettersson or something along those lines. I think from this perspective, and this is, I guess, just where I've ended up on every single rumor around Zegras, is I just don't think it makes sense to move him in any fashion. Like, I don't see a way that trading him makes your team better, I guess.
Well, I think that trading Zegras for Necas makes you immediately better. I think that Necas is just further along his development arc. He's just a more established player.
Sure.
Zegras isn't there yet. It's not saying that Zegras can't be that as soon as next season, but he isn't.
Sure. That's not what I'm saying, but I'm more so it's even in that conversation though. It feels almost like a lateral move.
Yeah, but here's my question though: is if you're going to trade Trevor Zegras, then isn't this like one of the better outcomes though?
It's better than trading him for just picks and prospects, sure. But yeah. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me still. Like I think that I would strongly consider doing it. I think letting it sit in my brain a little bit as we're talking. I think I might not at the end of the day because I still think Trevor Zegras, there's a lot there. There's a lot of potential there. He's also younger, which aligns with your window better.
Yeah. I also think though that just like looking at it from a Carolina perspective, he would help the Hurricanes quite a bit because they really need that creativity and that skill level in their lineup because they're so good at getting possession and establishing a cycle and getting shots on net, hunting rebounds, but he gives them that kind of that added playmaking that they just don't have really.
Yeah. And Lou brings up a good point. By doing this, you're going to have to add another forward. And to be fair, with Vetrano, you still have to do that when you move him out, but that's a lower end forward.
Here's my thing with Zegras is that there is potential, like it's quite possible that he does get traded no matter what because of whatever reason. Like they just never really align. They just never get to the point where they want to sign a long-term deal. And so like if to me, this would be one of the better outcomes is at least you're getting a very good talent in return who you can build around and who you can include in your core. Like, yes, it's lateral, but if we're starting from the position of he may get eventually traded anyway, like to me, this would be a pretty good outcome.
Sure.
But I wouldn't be happy about that trade because especially if it's just like 1-for-1, which I don't think it would be, but let's say that it would feel lateral for sure. I do think though that Martin Necas is just a completely different player than Zegras, and that is worth mentioning. He's a better skater. He's more aggressive off the rush. Like the thing with Trevor Zegras that I think sometimes we don't talk a lot about, but it's that he's such a dynamic playmaker, and he's quite possibly one of the smartest players in the league with the puck, but he's not the most dynamic skater. And we've seen in these playoffs, like you need speed, you need skating to win. And I'm not saying you can't win with Trevor Zegras. I'm just merely stating that there are some things that Martin Necas does better that do help drive winning. So it's not this like immediate, oh, I hate that trade, but it's one that would kind of leave me scratching my head. Honestly, it would make a lot of sense for Carolina because it's like if Necas doesn't want to be there anyway, and you go and get Trevor Zegras, who you can now have on the cheap for under team control, like that's a pretty sweet deal for them.
Yeah.
So interesting.
Agreed.
Interesting conversation.
Yep.
So I think that we've both kind of come to the conclusion that it probably isn't going to cost a ton to go and get Martin Necas. And there really isn't a walk away point unless it's like a Zegras involved. Because at that point, you're kind of questioning why you're doing it in the first place.
Yep.
Nikolaj Ehlers has also come up quite a bit. I mean, I feel like we can just kind of cut and paste this conversation.
Yeah, the difference with Ehlers is age. And that, like, I think Nikolaj Ehlers is actually the better player of the two of those.
He's older, though.
Right now. But he is what?
28.
He is 28. Going to be 29 next summer, though, when he needs... So he's eligible for an extension this summer. And it's going to take a pretty hefty deal probably to get him under contract. And you're going to be signing him for a contract that kicks in when he's 29 years old.
Yeah.
So it's going to be one that's not going to age as gracefully, even if it's a lower term of 6 years.
He's a fantastic skater.
Yeah. But it's still not going to age as gracefully as a Marty Necas contract where you're getting his prime years.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of why I would prefer a Marty Necas over a Nikolaj Ehlers. Having said that, if you can do it and you can make it work in a way that makes sense, getting Ehlers is great for this team. Downside is left-hand shot, which if we're holding Verbeek to his word that wants right-hand shot forward, which he was very specific about.
Well, it's not really a downside. I wouldn't call that a downside.
Well, it could be a reason for them not to go after him.
It could be a reason for them to trade Trevor Zegras.
That's also fair.
I actually think Zegras is more likely in this trade than in the Necas trade.
Yeah, I could see that.
Because of the whole lefty for lefty thing.
Yeah.
And then also like the Jets are kind of in this weird, I don't know what to call it, like a retool phase.
Purgatory a bit. They feel like they're about to hit like a purgatory phase.
Yeah. And so for them, I feel like they would really value getting a young player back. Whereas like with the Canes, like they're firmly in win now.
Yeah.
So I could see Zegras being a part of that trade. And I feel like you're losing, if you're the Ducks, you're kind of losing that trade because
100%.
You're getting an older player who's going to decline faster. I don't even know who's the positive value asset in that scenario. Like it's probably Zegras. Like I think that in that scenario, I think that the Jets are paying the Ducks to get Zegras more than the other way around.
Because Ehlers has one more year on his contract.
Yeah. Like I feel like that you might actually, maybe this is a hot take, but I feel like you might be able to get more than Ehlers in that scenario, but that might be wishful thinking. Anyway.
Yeah, I think Zegras' trade value is probably
not the highest.
Not the highest after this past season.
Fair. But yeah, so I think on the whole, though, these are the kind of trades that the Ducks should at least be thinking about because they do, like, yes, Ehlers is older, but like you said, though, he does help the team a lot right away. Like elite skater, offensive talent, like that's just what they need more of. And so in either scenario, the Ducks get better. but there is a walk away point in terms of price. I do think, though, that just from the calculations we've done on Necas, they should kind of aggressively pursue it because it's just because it's not going to cost a lot outside of the cap space you're allocating to Necas. So.
And hell, they should be having those conversations right now.
And they might be.
Yeah.
They might be. They might be doing that right now.
We saw a trade happen today with Ryan McDonagh going back to Tampa Bay.
That was a weird one. The weird thing to me about that trade is him wanting out.
Wait, he wanted out of Nashville?
Yeah, so he asked Barry Trotz to trade him.
Really?
That Barry Trotz said that in his press conference.
I missed that. I didn't pay attention to that at all today. I just saw that he was traded. I was like, oh.
So he wanted out, and they obliged him. And then the Lightning perked up and said, F them picks yet again. So
the wild part is that they basically gave up Ryan McDonagh for nothing to go to Nashville in a salary dump.
Yeah.
They got...
And now they're paying to get him back.
Yeah, exactly. At full contract.
Yeah.
I mean, for those Ducks fans that want to see Steven Stamkos in a Ducks jersey, I would say that today has made that seem potentially more apparent that he's going to, or more likely that he's going to leave Tampa Bay, because I have no idea how Tampa Bay could make that work after adding McDonagh's cap hit back to their cap sheet.
Yeah, it feels like they're going to have to make even more moves just to bring Stamkos back. And I don't know what you do. Like, is Nick Paul getting traded? Like, I just don't know what's going to happen there. Is Tanner Jeannot on the outs? Whatever happens, though, with the Lightning, they got their cups, and that's all that matters. You know, banners fly forever. But the other side of this, though, is going to be just horrific. Like,
yeah, I mean, that's the reality of a salary cap, though, right?
But that's what you do. I mean, like, that's what I respect about Julien Brisebois. And even though people are kind of dunking on him for this trade, it's like you have Nikita Kucherov playing at this MVP level. Mm-hmm. You have Braden Point. You're clearly not at the point where you can just tear it down. So screw it. We're just going to keep going for it. Like you tear it down and you grind in that rebuild to get to this point. This is the point where you want to be. Pat Verbeek would much rather be Julien Brisebois today than Pat Verbeek. And not literally, but like just in where they're at. And so I respect it. And hopefully sometime soon the Ducks will be in a position like this as well. So interesting.
All right. Anything else you want to hit before we get to questions?
The only thing I want to add is that I am continuing my draft prep. And if you want to see the breakdown videos, they're all on our Patreon page, patreon.com/crashthepond. I've watched 7 Artem Levshunov games. I am 2 games into Caden Lindstrom. And I just keep thinking, man, I don't know how the hell the Ducks are going to make their pick at 3, or like how they're going to come to a conclusion, because there's just so many good players available.
Yeah, because I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think with the Levshunov viewing, his stock has risen in your mind, and same thing with Caden Lindstrom, right?
Yeah, I think with Levshunov, I didn't really know anything about him previously, and now I get it. I understand the hype. I don't know, like, I don't have him as like a surefire best D in the draft or whatever, but I understand why people like him, and I like him too. I just don't know if I can confidently say he'll be the best defenseman out of this draft. Mm-hmm. So and that's why I just don't understand why people are so quick to put him as the top D, because it's like there's questions in his game, just like everyone else.
Caden Lindstrom also, you've grown to really like his game also, right?
Well, the thing with Lindstrom is it's a two-parter where I like his game. I have questions about his game. I haven't watched as much of him as Levshunov, but I can see Pat Verbeek loving his game because he's so physical. He's such an energizer bunny out there, and he's doing it at 6'4" with hands, with a shot. Like, Pat Verbeek's just going to be salivating at that kind of player. There's the injury concerns with him, but he's a potential Ducks target, I think.
Yep. All right. So you mentioned our Patreon. If you want to access our Patreon exclusive Discord, go to patreon.com/crashthepond and join us at the $2 tier. At that tier, you get access to the Discord. Also, any of the above tier or higher tiers, you also get access to the Discord, where you can ask us questions specifically for this podcast, and we will start there. Medic asked us, what should the Habs do this offseason? This is a question for Felix.
I saw this question earlier, and I'm going to duck it a little bit.
Okay.
I'll just say this. Do not sign Steven Stamkos. I've been seeing people say, like, I've been seeing Habs fans say, go out and get Steven Stamkos, and they are not at that point where they should be just spending money to spend it on, I'm not going to say washed up, but declining players. Don't do that.
Medic also said, who are the Conn Smythe favorites from the final 4 teams?
Wyatt Johnston.
Yes.
For Dallas. Draisaitl for Edmonton. Does that feel fair? Maybe Evan Bouchard.
I'm about to just look up playoff scoring.
Just look at points. But I would pick Wyatt Johnston for the Stars.
So Draisaitl currently leads with 24 points. Zibanejad is at 14. Man, the Oilers have so many more points. Kachuk's at 14 points. Heiskanen's at 13.
It's probably the usual suspects.
Wyatt Johnston's only at 11.
Well, from his team though.
He's third on his team.
Well, okay, so who would you pick above him?
Well, if we're going off points, Miro Heiskanen has 13 points in 13 games.
Yeah, but I'm talking like impact. Like I think Wyatt Johnston
I agree.
has been like maybe their best player.
So I would agree. I would say Wyatt Johnston. If we're talking the Rangers, probably Zibanejad.
I mean, for them, you could pick anyone like Panarin, Shesterkin.
Trocheck.
Shesterkin was huge. Trocheck.
Trocheck might be actually with the amount of like quality goals that he scored.
The timely goals. Yeah.
Panthers. I might go Barkov.
Kachuk. Bobrovsky's been good too.
And then Oilers Draisaitl.
Yeah, that one feels a little easier for some reason.
No Stu Skinner love.
I feel bad for that dude. Just because honestly, like he's a good goalie. He's great in the regular season. He was really good this year. And to see him kind of have another meltdown, I feel bad because what I hate about the playoffs is anytime something goes wrong for anyone, people just jump all over the narrative. Like, oh, we knew it. He sucks.
Both sides of it, right? When a guy goes off, like everyone's like he's the best thing since
But that's fine. Like let guys have their moment. Let guys get gassed up. But when people are just jumping all over a team, like, oh, they're frauds, or like, put Elias Pettersson's face in a milk carton or whatever. It's just like, like give these guys a break. I don't know. That's just me. I could be wrong about that.
I also think it's small sample size theater. Like
100%.
Understanding how they played versus what the results were. Like that's the toughest part about the playoffs is you remember the results. You don't remember the process at the end of it all. Like, that's the hard part is actually thinking about how they played and what the results should have been.
I agree.
All right. Hey, Odiflo said, predict your Eastern Conference Final and Western Conference Final MVPs.
I mean, I feel like Eastern Conference. So I'm picking the Panthers in the East.
I am rooting for the Rangers. I am picking the Panthers.
Okay. Well, that's nice of you, but I'm picking the Panthers. And so because of that, I have to pick a Panther player.
I'm picking Barkov.
Yeah. Cause I was going to say Kachuk, but I'm going to go Kachuk. I feel like he's just going to piss off someone and he's going to get someone like kicked out of a game or something. Like he's just going to have that kind of impact. But I think your Barkov pick may be better in that Barkov has the potential to try to shut down the top guys from New York.
Western Conference Final MVP.
Logan Stankoven.
Yeah. Short King season.
Short King. Number 11.
Yeah. Yep.
The Stars are just so much fun.
Dalton Key says, thoughts on Trevor's World Championship so far? We already mentioned it.
Neither
watched. Of us have been able to watch it. Ivan Demiduk said, would you rather sign Stamkos for 3 years or Reinhart for 7? Reinhart for 7.
I think, just because I don't trust that Stamkos is even going to be any good like 2 years into that. Whereas Reinhart, you're at least getting like 3 to 4 years of good hockey.
Yeah.
So
Dead Inside Wrench said, do you think the Ducks should trade down? What would you want to see a return for a trade with Montreal to 5?
I honestly don't see the benefit of trading down.
Yeah.
Unless you're super confident that your guy is still going to be there, or that you don't feel that strongly about anyone, that you're fine getting one of like 3 players. But just take your pick of the litter. Like what? I don't know. I don't really see a benefit there. So I just wouldn't do it.
Yep. Indiana Jared said, what are you more excited about this offseason, the draft or free agency to bolster the Ducks team? For me, it's the draft.
Wow.
Largely because I don't
Pesci?
foresee free agency being that eventful.
Pesci? Stamkos?
I just don't see free agency being that eventful. I think the draft's going to be way more eventful for the Ducks.
Yeah, I'm going to say the draft just because I'm just so knee deep into this draft and I'm just so curious about it. But for next season, though,
I still think it's the draft though, because of trades happening at the draft.
Oh, okay.
That's what I mean about the draft. It's not just the draft from the players, it's also the draft of the circus around the draft.
Okay. Yeah, maybe. I mean, maybe that's when we see a Necas trade.
Yeah. Trust the Verplan Drumbanger said, predict your point totals for next season. I am going to abstain from this just because I want to see what they do at the in trades and free agency ahead of making any sort of point prediction.
I'll say 78 right now without knowing anything.
Okay. Heyo Deflo said, which UFA has the highest likelihood of signing with the Ducks?
Ooh. I'll say Brett Pesce. I think the Ducks want him. They want a right shot deep.
Yeah, there's a name, but I'm not sure if he's a free agent. So I want to give me
Evan Rodriguez.
No, he is not. He is not a free agent. The Ducks were close to signing him, right?
Yeah, they were. Yeah. That was the summer of the almost signings.
Yeah.
Him and Nino Niederreiter.
Yeah, let's see. Jordan Martinook.
He
is a UFA.
That is actually a good call because watching him for Carolina in these playoffs, he is the exact kind of player the Ducks need on their team.
He's also, I think, exactly what the Ducks want from a fourth liner.
Just high motor, some skill, good skater, physical. Sign me up for Jordan Martinook on the Ducks.
Only issue is he's 31.
But that means you're not gonna sign him to a 6-year deal or anything. You're gonna get him on a more reasonable deal.
Don't sign him to a Brandon Tanev deal.
Yeah, or a Ryan Strome deal.
Yeah. Caden Lindstrom's number one fan said, I've seen a lot of discussion recently about referee reviews and how many there are and how long they take. How would you fix/improve the process, or would you like to see them review less calls?
I would just prefer less reviews. Just bring human error back into the game. Who cares?
I disagree.
But also, have you seen this proposal about getting an apron around the crease? Another zone around the crease where it's if it's in here, if there's contact in here, goalie interference. If it's not in here, no goalie interference.
No,
just creating a bright line.
Here's the issue: is that they have a freaking bright line. The issue is that they haven't enforced it in the playoffs like they have every other time.
Okay,
I was listening to What Chaos, and they had, I think he was the former Coyotes video coach on it.
Yeah,
and he had mentioned that he's I'm hearing from video coaches that this is infuriating because they don't know what is what anymore because of how these calls are going.
And those guys know the rules really well.
The Bennett push on, what was it? Was it Coyle? I forget who it was.
It was a Bruin.
That should have been goaltender interference easily. And then you also have the Bobrovsky getting his skate kicked out. You can't say that he had enough time to reset when he's just getting back to his feet and setting when a shot's coming. That sets him off. That puts him in a bad position where he can't make a save. Those are easy calls. And I've dove into goaltender interference in the rule book so many times where I feel like I have a decent understanding of the rule. And just by looking at it, you can kind of typically figure out what's going to be called. And they've just kind of thrown that out the window in these playoffs. And I think that that's the part that's frustrating with it. As for how would I fix it? I would almost do what soccer does. Have a video assistant that jumps in on these and makes the ruling on these. And don't leave it to the on-ice guy. Have it be an off-ice guy that handles it for every single one of the games. So it's a consistent ruling all throughout.
I like that. I actually like that a lot.
And if there is something that is egregious, they can flag the referee on that, or the on-ice referee.
Yeah. No, that's good.
Yeah.
Good take. Good take by you.
Thank you. Literic Al said, will Maxi Jonesy return?
Oh boy, we were having a chat about this today in Discord, but I don't think any of these RFAs are back except for Jackson Lacombe.
Yeah, I don't foresee a situation where any of the Ducks
Isaac Lundstrom's qualifying offer is 1.8 mil. He's just not getting qualified, and then from there, who knows where he goes?
When are qualifying offers due?
Oh, I don't know. I have no clue.
They're due ahead of the draft?
They might be. I feel like it's before. It's end of June would be my guess.
Well, it's going to be interesting if they decide not to qualify Lundstrom. They lose any power to trade him then.
That's true. But what's he going to get you though? Like
if we have him in the Necas trade,
that's true. Okay.
We just talked about that.
I think I would be a little. I said though I would be a litle surprised if he was the guy.
Sure.
I think Lacombe is likelier to be the guy there.
Sure.
He addresses a bigger need for Carolina.
Maybe Urho, Vakanainen, maybe one of Vakanainen or Lindstrom.
I just don't think any of these guys have trade value.
No, I not trade value, but I think just one of those guys gets a qualifying offer.
Oh, from that perspective, yeah, maybe just to have bodies.
Yeah.
On the blue line, like it's probably Lindstrom because he's a righty, and they have less of those. But I could just see a scenario where nobody is back, including Lacombe because he's been traded. So,
sure.
Do you think Ben Myers comes back?
I don't know. He is a UFA. That would be weird because they traded a 3rd round pick for him.
I think it was a 5th.
Was it a 5th?
I think it was a 5th. I'm like fairly confident it was a 5th. But
I'll look it up right now. But let's see. It was a 5th. Yeah, it was a 5th. We both got there at the same time. Yeah, I mean a 5th isn't a huge deal.
It's not. It's just interesting that they would walk away from. Maybe he wants to go somewhere else. Maybe Switzerland will pay more. I don't know.
Molarkey said, "Do the Ducks use both first or trade the Oilers pick?" Well, we've talked about most of this episode about trading that pick, so let's go with trade it.
Well, I think they're not going to trade it for anyone. I think it's got to be a piece that's going to actually help them longer term.
But we talked about this entire podcast about trading that first for Marty Necas. So.
But yes, but that means that trade gets done.
Yeah, so I'm going to go with that trade happens. So
there's a lot of teams who can concoct a mock Necas trade.
Yep. So I'm going to say they trade the Oilers pick. Dead Inside Wrench said, "Who's your pick for sleeper breakout year next year?"
For the Ducks?
Yeah.
Huh. Sleeper's a good way to look at it. I'm gonna say, you know what? This is cheating, but I don't care. I'm gonna say Trevor Zegras.
Yeah, I think that's a good one.
He hasn't had his breakout year yet, and people are definitely sleeping on him, or they're just wide awake hating. But either way, they are not happy with him.
Yep. Molarkey said, "Is the Ducks' total salary within $5 million of the salary cap on opening night? Basically, are you spending to the cap or not?"
How much money would they need to spend for that to happen?
Let's see.
Because everyone's doing the screenshot right now with their cap space of 33 mil, but that's not. I mean, they're gonna have it. That's not fully accurate.
So they have projected cap space next season of. Oh wait, yeah, it already has jumped ahead. Sorry. Yeah, so they have a cap space of 33 mil, but that is with 16 players on their roster.
Yeah. So that's going to get eaten into.
So they have 7 additional slots to fill up. So what's 33 divided by 7? That is about 5.
Yeah.
So I'll say it's unlikely they're within $5 million of the cap just because of the amount of guys on ELCs.
Yeah. I think that's a good call.
Stan said, "Lindstrom had a pace of 140 penalty minutes for a season in the WHL. Is that a concern going into the draft?"
I think that might be music to Pat Verbeek's ears. That might be oh, yes.
Even with all the penalty issues that they had this season?
I mean, they didn't do... What did they do about it this year except nothing?
I mean, supposedly Greg Cronin... Didn't Greg Cronin have a quote of saying that Verbeek told him that he can now sit guys or...
Yeah,
he should sit guys
at game 75 or something.
Yeah,
the horses left the barn or the stable or whatever the freaking expression is.
So that's it for Discord. Before we get to Twitch or YouTube, I had one Twitter question, or actually, I think I had 2. Yeah, Clark said, "I have a question for you. Who do you guys think will be named the captain?"
Oh, we talked about this. I'm going to say,
I'm going Troy Terry.
I'm going Leo Carlson.
I'm going Troy Terry.
Leo is the face. He's just the face. He's the face of the franchise.
Trevor Zebra said, "One question tonight. Do you think Noah Warren has the potential to be a solid middle pair shutdown defenseman for the Ducks and be paired with Zellweger or Minchikov?"
Yeah, he has that potential for sure. How likely he is to hit on that potential, I don't know because I haven't watched him at all. But yeah, he has that potential.
Yep. All right, now we're going to come to Twitch and YouTube. So if you're listening to this on your favorite podcast services, you can find us each and every time we go live at twitch.tv/crashspawn, where if you have Amazon Prime, you get one free Twitch Prime gaming sub each and every month, and it does help out more than you can imagine. You get special emotes in the chat, special badges next to your name, and you can be just like our good friends Ducks Jaggernaut, who resubbed for 20 months. So thank you so much, Eric, for that. And Chicken Taco Salad, who subscribed for his 33rd month. So thank you both for doing that for us. So please send us that send that our way if you have that. It helps out more than you know. Or if you want to find us, you can go to youtube.com/crashspawn, where if you have a YouTube account, and yes, I do know everyone that is listening to this has a YouTube account. Everyone watches YouTube videos. Find us there, subscribe to our channel, like our videos. If you're watching this now, please, let's have a little bit of a like spike. Like the video right now if you're watching it. Helps out a bunch. So we'll get to questions right now from there. So Muhammad Zegras said, question, does the Terry contract age well, okay, or poorly?
I'm going to say it ages okay. Yeah. I'm going to say, I don't think it's going to age poorly, but I don't know about well.
I think it will age well, largely just due to salary cap rising.
Yeah. But in terms of just the return on investment, I think it's going to age okay, which is better than bad. Yeah, which is often the case on these big contracts.
All right, Nasrini Prihadi said, "Do you think the draft pick will make our move in the trade/FA market? Like maybe if we pick a forward, Verbeek will try to go for right-hand D NHLers, and also or the other way around there. If he takes a defenseman, that means the Ducks are for sure going for a forward."
I feel like they're kind of unrelated or like independent, because whoever the Ducks draft with that third overall pick is very, 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 very likely to not be in the NHL next season. So it just doesn't really affect the short term.
Yep, I would agree. Muhammad Zegras also asked, question, if the Ducks end next season in the bottom 5 again, does panic begin?
Honestly, part of me wants to say like, well, if they just get unlucky or they play well, but they somehow finish there, then I'd be fine with it. But
excuses are over.
I feel like we're past that point. Like, we've got to see results. So I would say yes. And it shouldn't be panic. It should be like anger. It should be like, hey, demand better of this front office. I don't think that's going to happen. Could be very wrong about that. But yeah, I think that that's when you can start getting crazy, is if it happens again.
Yep. Lewis X209 said, question, should the Ducks play Mason McTavish on the wing at any point next season?
I don't know why they haven't tried it. Or I guess they did try it for like 2 games when he came back.
Well, they tried it also when he was
or no, it was when they tried it when he was like in the doghouse this season.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think they should try it because I think a lot of what he does can really shine on the wing. I do think, though, that they're dead set on him being a center, and I don't blame them for it. I mean, you drafted the guy very high. You didn't draft him to be a winger, so you want to see that through.
Yep. Darius Otero said, question, who plays the most games in Anaheim next year? Colangelo, Gaucher, Nathan Gaucher, not Cutter Gauthier, Sasha Pastujov, or the 3rd overall pick?
I kind of want to rank these just for fun.
Okay.
But
most games.
Most games is Colangelo.
Okay. Next most.
Next most is Gaucher.
Okay. Next most after that.
Pastujov.
And then 3rd overall pick.
I just don't think that person's playing games.
I will flip Pastujov on the 3rd overall pick because I think if they take Levshunov, he is going to get games at the end of the season.
Yeah, maybe, but like that might.
And I don't know.
That might not be very many.
I don't think Pastujov is going to get any, so that's why.
I mean, I think Pastujov had a good bounce back season. I will give him credit for that. And Gaucher may just still be like they talked about him being a year away. So
I think that just
maybe you flip those two.
I think that with the 4th line being open, things like that, I think Gaucher is more likely to be pushed into that role than a Pastujov.
I agree. I think Pastujov has a harder path to get there.
Exactly. That's why I have him at the lowest.
Well, if they draft Ivan Demidov, he's not playing next season.
Sure.
So it depends who they pick. But yeah, I think Colangelo should play games. Like I know he barely played and maybe we're putting too much stock into the small sample, but he looked damn good for what he was. So I would have him comfortably at number 1 there.
Nisrini Prahati said, any prediction of RFAs that the Ducks will retain, including with the goals guys? So I think we ran through this before. From the Duck side of it, I mean,
I don't think any
Jackson
of them are
Lacombe,
back.
Jackson Lacombe and maybe one of Lindstrom and Vakanainen.
Yeah, and even that is like they might just decide to replace those guys.
All right, we'll do a yay or nay kind of. We've done this before, but we'll do it again. Why not? Here are the RFAs for the goals. McLaughlin.
Nay.
Nestorenko.
Yes. He's only 22.
Regenda.
I'm going to say he goes back to Europe.
Okay. Tracy.
He's still young. What's another contract?
Yep.
I say yes.
He's the same age as Nestorenko for what it's worth.
I know that people are really down on him, but like there's still a little room there to improve. So,
yep. So that's it for questions in Twitch and Discord or Twitch and YouTube chat. So we had a couple shit show questions if you want to do it.
Sure.
OG Leo Carlson Truther said, what were Felix's back day exercises today?
No one wants to hear about that.
JJ Stone Drum says, will the next captain have to shave their head as an homage to Getzlaf?
That would be really funny if that happened.
Yeah. BPH said, recommend me a pair of board shorts, please.
That's a question for you.
Yeah. My go-to, like just hanging out shorts, I go with Viore. I really, really am a big fan of Viore shorts right now. They have their trunks that are, I think they're volleys. I forget what they are, but I'm actually wearing them right now as we speak. I also have their board shorts that that have like the lace in the front so you can surf in them. Hurleys are always a good call. Rip Curl are always good. I think Hurley and Rip Curl are like the main brands I go for. If we're talking about surf brands, Viore has jumped up my list high lately.
Okay. Good to know.
Yeah. All right. So I think that's going to do it for us tonight. Wow.
You just skipped a bunch of shit show questions.
Oh, you want more? They are all old that we never ended up getting to.
I've got nothing but time tonight. I've got nothing. I'm all yours.
Okay.
I'm all yours.
Let's see. So we'll skip Lou's question because that was about how many points you were going to get in a beer league game. Olaf is Berserker said
the answer was 0, by the way.
Which color has overstayed its welcome on sports uniforms, and which color needs more invites?
Oh,
black.
Yeah, probably black.
Black is overstayed.
I know a lot of people would say red or blue, and I'll
black.
push back. I'll push back on that.
Which color needs more invites?
Purple.
Yeah, a purple, like purple or essentially eggplant and jade. Let's be real.
Well, I thought you couldn't call it purple. I thought that was like sacrilegious.
Just something in that shade, like the Charlotte Hornets, right?
Yeah. I think purple is like you can do stuff with purple. You don't have to just do the purple and gold like the Kings. You can do other stuff.
Yep.
So.
Yep. Isaac said, "What candy are each of the Ducks' young core?" Oh, I can't. This Patreon episode, Isaac. Throw it in a Patreon.
Hold on. Let's do like 2. Okay. Let's do 2. Okay. Snickers. Just, not great, but reliably mediocre. Cam Fowler.
He said young core.
Oh, young core. I mean, Cam Fowler's still kind of young. Zegras has got to be like, what's the sweetest, most caffeine-filled?
Pop Rocks.
Okay, he's Pop Rocks.
He's Pop Rocks because they're great, but it has a little bit of a bite to it.
Yes, Carlson is just like a heavy hitter. You know what you're going to get.
A Snickers.
No. Because
that is a Snickers.
Snickers aren't very good, though.
They are good.
They are, okay. I mean, if you want to go that route.
Maybe a Kit Kat. Kit Kat or Snickers.
And then Mason McTavish. Is he a baby Ruth? Just like everyone thinks they're great, but I'm not going to finish that sentence. I'm not going to finish that sentence for my own self-preservation. Lou's saying in our chat that Snickers are not good. They do the job, and that's why they're Cam Fowler. That's why Cam Fowler is Snickers.
He's also calling you a coward now. Uh,
Hey, why are people getting upset? I didn't say anything. I don't even remember what I said. I've already purged my memory. Look at that.
All right. Trust the Verplan drum banger said, why was Gibson able to stop why wasn't he able to stop Man City from winning the title? You know, Arsenal didn't deserve it. They didn't deserve it.
Footy?
Yeah. Appa asks, where does he sign up for the position of Anaheim Ducks power play coach?
Honestly, I hope you apply, Appa. I hope you go on Indeed.com, search Anaheim Ducks, and there it'll be, I'm sure.
Yeah, definitely. All right. I think that's going to do it for us.
Yeah.
We never actually talked about Marner, but whatever. We'll get to that next episode.
I mean, similar rationale. He's even more expensive, though. The money there might actually be prohibitive for me. Also, I feel like the Ducks kind of have that player type already. I don't know. Maybe I'm inconsistent there, but there's something about Marner. There's a stink on him that I just can't shake. Maybe it's the playoff failure. Maybe it's getting chewed out by Willie Nylander on the bench. I don't know what it is, but there's something about him that I don't like, and that might be more of a me problem. And I will acknowledge that. Mohamed Zegras asks Slavkovsky or Carlson. At their peak, at their absolute best, Slavkovsky.
You're just lying.
No, I love Uri Slavkovsky, but I can't lie. It's Leo Carlson.
Yeah.
That's me being unbiased. I should be applauded for that.
Do you want Lou to pat your back?
I need like severe back pats. I almost said pat backs. It's not what I want.
It'll get you.
Okay, well, we're gonna leave since Jake wants out. That's okay.
I'm tired.
We're trading roles tonight. We're trading roles. Usually, I'm the one who wants out early. Now that gets to be you, and that's okay. We honor that. We uphold that.
I gotta be up at 4:45 tomorrow.
That sucks. That's in less than 8 hours.
Yeah,
that really sucks.
As you're trying to extend this.
Okay, well, hey, can't blame me for everything. Thank you for listening, everyone. If you want to support the podcast, check out our Patreon, patreon.com/crashthepond. We already talked about it. Not going to belabor it, but $2 a month, access to the Discord, super fun. $7.50 a month, access to 2 bonus podcasts, and a ton of draft content leading up to the draft. Go check that out. You can also subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts. Leave us a review, please. We just got a really negative one saying that we fell off or something, which I disagree with. So go shout that review down. Go shout it down. Inundate it with love and laughter. Live, laugh, love. But that's on Apple Podcasts. You can also leave us a rating and a review on Spotify. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Check out our Patreon, check out our website. Check us out on Twitter, formerly known as X. And on that note, we'll talk to you soon. Have a good one.
Bye. Thanks for coming into our home.